everybody, and welcome to today's Career Crush Q&A. I'm Emily Aries, the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, and I am so excited to introduce to you today Kathlyn Hart, a speaker, coach, and the creator of the Big Leap Show podcast. I had the most fun on with you not too long ago, so you have to check her podcast out. And we're going to talk today, like we always do on our Wednesday, 1 o'clock Eastern Career Crush Q&As, about how these incredible guests of mine, including Kathlyn, have crafted careers with passion and purpose. And it's not always an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of hustle. It takes a lot of heart. And I know that Kathlyn's got a great story to share to kind of go behind the scenes and peel back that curtain of perfection and sort of share with us how you got to where you are today. After all, that's what we're all about at Bossed Up, is helping you craft that happy, healthy, and sustainable career path that really lights you up. One quick plug before we get started. I want to make sure that everybody knows there's less than a week left to join our pregame Your Career Change Challenge, which is kicking off next Tuesday. It's going to be so much fun. It's sponsored by Rent the Runway. They're gifting all of our participants with some sweet discounts, and it's really going to be focused on in-depth lessons week to week to help you get everything ready for your next career leap, whether that's a promotion or you're seeking a new job altogether. And then last but not least, use that hashtag #CareerCrush, as I will be doing on the side here, tweeting away throughout today's broadcast. And you can get at me on Twitter at BossedUpORG or at Emily Aries. And you can get Kathlyn at Kathlyn Hart.
Yeah, it's a hard one to smell.
Right?
Yeah.
And the Big Leap Show is at the Big Leap Show, correct?
You can do hashtag the Big Leap Show and I'll find it.
There you go. Great. So if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, or if you're joining us live, keep tweeting at us. We'll gladly connect with you that way during and after the broadcast. So Kathlyn,
yeah,
thank you so much for being here. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. It's going so good. I'm so excited to be a career crush because there's so many women who I love who have been on here that I have major crushes on. So it's cool to be part of the community. Yeah.
It's the only way to describe this is like, oh my God, I adore her career. I adore her. We got to get her on here to talk about how she did it. So tell us a little bit about, let's start with where you are now. Okay. Tell us about the show. Tell us about the nature of your work now. And then we'll start to go back a little deeper.
Okay, sounds good. And I just came back from a conference where I was like screaming on the dance floor. So my voice is a little bit deeper than it usually is.
I like it.
But yeah, I like it. It's more sultry. Yeah. So I'm the host of the Big Leap Show. This is a podcast that I started in January and actually have been thinking about for a long time. And we can get into the details of that and how I moved out of that fear. But the Big Leap Show is really about sharing the stories of really, I can swear on here, right? Yeah. Really kick-ass, badass women who I just admire. You know, I have crushes on them. I want to know, how did they make it happen? How did they take those leaps? How did they start that business? And it's really similar up to Bossed Up, where we just want to create really honest, engaging conversations about like real talk. How did you get there? And encourage other people to go for their dreams as well.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's at thebigleapshow.com, right?
Yeah.
That's where
Super simple.
Right? Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. So you're based in San Francisco these days, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't always the case. So take us back to being stuck in LA traffic, which I know as a Northeasterner, right, and an East Coast girl, not a lot of us can appreciate just how intense feeling stuck and how literal that was for you at the time. But tell us about the moment when you found yourself kind of stuck in traffic in LA, and not too long ago, but a whole different career ago.
Yeah. So this was, maybe it's like 5 years ago or so at this point. And, you know, you're stuck in traffic. Like you said, it's a very visceral feeling where you're just like stuck and you're like, what am I doing? And being stuck in LA traffic, going less than 10 miles to my job, but taking over an hour. I just felt like I was going nowhere quick, and like literally and physically nowhere quick, and doing that day after day. And also being in the position where I was hardly making my rent. I definitely wasn't saving after I was paying down my student loans and car loans and any other debt I had. It was so frustrating. And I got to this place where I was sitting there and it was like a scorching hot LA day. And I was like, what the F am I doing? Like, I have so many other dreams that I want to do. I know I want to make an impact in the world. I know nonprofit is a great avenue for me, but right now this is not making sense. I had dreams to travel. That was never going to happen. I had all these dreams in the back of my head about what's a career I've always wanted to have, and feeling like I can't make it happen. So there was a switch where I was like, no, like, I'm going to make it happen. Like, I don't care. I'm going to switch my careers. I'm going to like get paid more. I'm going to go travel someday. Like, maybe I'll start a business, like maybe not, because at that time I was like, that's a fun idea, but it's probably never going to happen for me. And yeah, after that moment hit, I just really quickly started getting my ducks in line. And because I can swear, I'll share this. The mantra that I came up with at that moment was actually my very first blog, which was called Bitches Work. And I felt like so stuck in my career. I honestly felt like I was just doing bitch work day in and day out. And I'm like, I'm a smart person. I am capable of so much more than this. And not that, you know, that work is definitely necessary in almost every job.
Sure.
But feeling that way over and over, I was like, no more bitch work, bitches work. I get shit done. I'm going to make it happen. And pretty quickly after that, I was like, what's the career I want to have next? Buckled down, focused my resume, started applying. And that was like really the first leap I took.
When you first said your mantra there, I was like, yeah, bitches work. I was thinking you were like, hell yeah, bitches get done. Or like, work and eat. So it's funny how that can mean such different things to different people. But I'm glad that you were like, I'm the boss of my life and I'm the boss of my career. Because it gets so easy for us, especially I think as women who excel academically, who are used to performing and pleasing and getting A's, to get stuck in that perfectionistic trap of wanting to do what other people expect us to do instead of getting clear and focused, like you're saying, on what it is that you want to do. So tell me about that first leap. You got some clarity on vision, or you started to, right? Because I think career transition is an iterative process. Just starting a business, you're going to make your first move and then you're going to learn from it. So tell us about how that iteration, like, what did that first iteration look like for you? And I also want to get to money in a second, but let's put it aside for 1 minute. I know you've got lots to share in that, but tell me about architecture.
Yeah. So all growing up, I was fascinated with architecture. I was fascinated with design. I grew up in the Bay Area, and there's just so many different kinds of buildings here. And I loved it. So I had always thought, okay, I want to be in architecture. Also, I was growing up in Richmond, California. And I used to think when I was a child, if only I can make the homes pretty, then the people will be happy. Because there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of anger in the area. And so I thought buildings make me so happy. That's how I would make other people happy. That shifted over time. As I started applying for colleges, I was thinking, oh, urban design is where it's at. If I could build entire cities that foster a happy environment, then that's how you create a happy world. Applying for colleges, though, I got into schools where I could pursue that, but I didn't get enough scholarships to make it happen. And so I went to UCLA, which I loved, but at the time they didn't have an architecture undergrad program. And so I put that on the back burner and was like, well, that's probably just not in the cards for me. And I made that transition into thinking I want to work for nonprofit. So getting back to that childhood dream of really making a list, like, what are all the things I've always wanted to explore? Architecture and design just kept coming back up to the top. So I said, if there's ever a time I'm going to make a switch, it's going to be now, when I'm literally not making any money, when I'm so low on the totem pole. Like, why not? So I said, architecture is where it's going to be at. I will take any job in architecture company. I will be a receptionist. I will be a program coordinator. I will be whatever. So I was really lucky to find an internship which combined my background, which was in international development, with this design firm, which is an incredible design firm, global. So it was like, you know, they build airports, they build Starbucks, they do Sephora's, they do all these really awesome projects. And I thought, this is it. Like, I've made it. Like, I'm going to work my way up the ladder. Like, they're going to love me and I'm going to get paid more and I'm going to make a difference. And I'm going to be pursuing this architecture dream. And pretty quickly, like you said, you get into it and you find out, like, oh, that's not actually what I want to do. Which is good that I didn't spend my whole college career working towards that. But testing that was wonderful. Allowed me to start going back to the drawing board and see what else I was interested in. But like you said, it's, I I was going to say, like you said, it's an iterative process. And what happened to me, and I think what happens to so many of us, is like, we're like beating our head against the wall. Like, why can't I find my career path? Like, why can't I, is it me? Like, am I not able to commit to something? Am I not clear on what my actual dreams were? So what I started doing is going back to that drawing board, but instead of looking at what careers I wanted, started looking into what interests I had. So what are things that I've always had on my bucket list to learn? And one of those was Photoshop, web design, creating movies, different things like that. So I started exploring those things and started saying like, oh yeah, web design, this is something that I could kind of get into, and made the transition into basically a software designer. At that same company, I started making friends with the people in that department, and we come to them with all these ideas of how we can make the websites better and how we can, I don't know if you can hear my dog, he's squeaking his toy. I'm sorry.
Coast to coast puppies happening today, so it's all good.
So that was the transition to that, and after that, it's just been leap after leap and going further and further into discovering like truly who I am and what I want to do. I can keep going with my leaps, but no,
and we will. I just want to underline for those who are tuning in today, thinking like, how the hell do I get me one of those leaps? You know what I mean? Like, how do I sign up for one of those? Is the language you used around that. It's about testing, right? It's about testing yourself, testing your interests, testing what you want to work for, right? This is work after all. So what is it that lights you up, but you will stay lit up, right? In the process of getting it done and working and learning, but also following not your desired career, but focusing on what you want to learn. I think that's a really great shift in an approach that sort of, we feel like we need to find a career path instead of building our skill sets. And I think that's what this part of our lives, especially 20s and early 30s, are all about. It's like really broadening and deepening our skill sets to make ourselves more valuable in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the skills that I've built up now, I can apply towards nonprofit or helping architecture or, helping women, or I can apply all those skills because it's a skill I have and I enjoy.
Yeah. And you sought out that kind of knowledge base within your own company while still in a role that wasn't defined that way, right?
Yeah. Well, it started off with just like Coursera courses and looking up online tutorials and going to the library and eating up books on it. And
yeah. It's funny how when you decide to take charge of your own education, how much you want to read, right?
Yeah.
Even more than you wanted to read when you were just going through the motions of your education in a formal way.
Totally.
So then
I was going to say along those lines, like the library has been super important for me in discovering books, because so often when we're like, what do I want to do? And all you do in your normal day-to-day life is look around you. And if you're not surrounded by somebody that say, at age 25, built a multi-million-dollar company, you wouldn't think that that's in your cards.
Right.
But the library is the most awesome place to explore what are everything that I've ever wanted to learn. And that's also how I started to discover what are the skills I want to learn, what are the topics I want to learn more about, because I would just see what sections would I get drawn to over and over again. And for me, it's money, personal development, it's design, it's women. Yeah.
So let's talk about money, shall we?
Money,
So a big part of, and I know you've gotten some more formal training now from being a yoga instructor to coaching other people, but how did money come into play, right? When you went from living paycheck to paycheck to starting to take charge of your trajectory a little bit and really being focused and mindful in your direction.
Yeah.
What shifted for you along the financial front? Because I think that's one of the common denominators for all people navigating careers. We have to feel in charge of our money, but it's not always an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Well, money for me was the first gateway into owning my life, and to becoming more confident in who I was as a person and what I was capable of. So when I wasn't in control of my money, I wasn't in control of my life. That's how I literally felt. Like I was, like you said, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no freedom to really choose what I wanted to do after I ended work. I couldn't even go to happy hours. So getting in control of my finances was one of the first steps I took, even before I made the career switch. Because before I made the career switch, I was like, I love nonprofit. I'm going to make this work. So I started getting in control of my money and reading all these books on it and incredible blogs that I still love to read. And then yeah, so getting into control of my money, getting in control of my debt, and becoming really aware of, okay, well, what's my real big dream? My real big dream is to go travel the world. That's the thing I want to make sure I do before I like ever dive straight into my career, because I don't want to be one of those people who's thinking in the back of their mind, I'd rather be in the Bahamas.
Right.
I'd rather have gone to the Bahamas and had fun and then say, I want to be here at work. So I figured out how much would I need to be able to save towards this goal? And somehow through calculations, through figuring out what I would owe in terms of debt, to be able to pay it off while I was away, plus just be able to like live while I'm there, plus be able to have an emergency fund so that I wouldn't rush into whatever job came next, I came up with 16,000. That felt like a really good number for me to be able to travel at least 6 months, if not to a year, if I stretched it really, really thin. So coming up with that number gave me clarity and said, okay, with my current job, is this possible? And I did the calculations, no way is it possible. So then I said, okay, well, maybe I'll get a second job. So I got a second job and I was making a good amount more, just even working at a sushi restaurant. But I was so tired because I was working 60-hour weeks.
Right.
And pretty quickly I became so exhausted. And I know you feel this way too. It's like, you can't be a productive person. You can't like do anything when you are run into exhaustion.
I mean, you can for a little while.
You can for a little while. Yeah, I did it for a while. Right. And then I crashed.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't do anything. So taking up multiple jobs, I took up a second one after that to even stretch myself even more thin. I was like, this is not sustainable. So that's when I said I need to make the career switch. So I was looking into careers and I was looking at, okay, I could stay here in LA or I could go back to San Francisco to be closer to my family. Did the calculations about how much does an architect or a designer make. Right. Based off of that, minus out all the things I needed to save. Okay, how many years would it take me to get to my goal? Right. That was the real eye-opening thing where it's like, even if I were to switch careers, it would still take me like over 5 years to make this goal between what I'd be making as like a really low on the totem pole. So right. That's when I said, I'm going to move home. And I think that's something that not a lot of people like to do. And I totally respect that. And it's also an option that many people don't have, or they think they don't have, which is totally fine. I know some people who, you know, they couch surfed for a while or they lived with 4 people in a room. Mine was like, you know what? I'm moving home. I would love to develop a stronger relationship with my mom and sisters anyway. Like this sounds great. And I did the calculations and I realized that I could easily do it under 3 years. And that was the green light to say it's totally worth it for me to do this.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you shared that, because a lot of women listening in and a lot of women who come through Bossed Up stores, you know, the financial realities of the middle class right now are scary. I mean, it's political season, and my background in campaigns and elections make me especially attuned to these issues. But like, this is not our parents' 20s economy. You know what I mean? So that's such an interesting option that I think is worth talking about and exploring. And I know a lot of my peers who've now bought houses. Yeah. That are like these enormous houses because they've spent some time at home in their 20s, whirling away as as possible. That just for sure, sort of to also share on that front, that wasn't an option for me and a lot of people I know, but what was like paring down and skimping down on expenses like crazy. And when you really take a hard look at the income and the outgoing, right? Incoming and outgoing money, then you can make those hard calculations and actually be empowered to do something about it. So I think it's so great.
Yeah. I think it's just how bad, like, if you want to live, you know, like in a $15 hostel with 16 other people because you want to make it happen in a year, like go do it. And if you're like, if that's not an option, or you just can't, like, you know, you're fine with waiting more time. I was just so impatient. I was like, I got to make this happen now, like yesterday.
I'm so glad you said that, actually. I want to dig into that because I just was doing a lot of writing this past summer. And one of the things that really opened up in the writing I've been doing is on patience. Yeah. And we millennials get some shit, I think, for being impatient, but also impatience is what's gotten me everything that I've ever received, right? It's like my biggest blessing and my biggest curse. Yeah. And now you have to have impatience to not accept the status quo, but you then have to have patience to see a vision through. Yeah. Fruition. So tell me what happened from there. So you were impatient enough to say, I'm going to get it out. I'm going to get it together. I'm going to make shit happen.
Yeah.
what happened since then? So tell us about your travels and what's happened since then too.
Yeah. So since then, it was a series of like, well, even with my impatience, I was like, I still want to get paid more. So part of that was also learning to advocate for myself, negotiate salary raises, to be able to even just get paid market value. And learning to speak up for myself. So I was able to accelerate the time that I had to actually make it to traveling. Once I hit that goal, it was honestly like, my goal's here. Like I use LearnVest, and I had my whole calculator. And once I hit that $16,000 goal, I like pretty quickly turned in my 2 weeks notice, and left it on a very, very wonderful note. Like I'm still friends with all of my people. They always said, you definitely have a job here when you get back. They even tried to work with me to say, let's have you still work while you travel. But I knew that this was something I need to do. I know I need to cut off ties. And while traveling was when I started to explore using my voice, blogging, and helping others through design, like through web design, Photoshop, all that stuff. So as an outlet, I started blogging and did my blog. And a lot of fears came up around that, especially around the name. And so I could go deep into how to overcome some of those fears and, comparison, all of that.
Yeah.
But essentially from there, I started helping people with their websites as I was traveling with my boyfriend. That allowed us to keep traveling for a little bit longer than we were thinking, and also have more money when we came back home. So from there, it's developed into its own business that I actually don't try to promote at all, because I don't. It's what sustains me now. The podcast is growing, and I don't want to put any pressure on it to make a living for me.
Right.
So for the past 3 years, I've built up this company, which now gives me the freedom to do this podcast full time, and then continue to support others in the world. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fear, shall we? Because
Yeah.
it sounds like you got something to say on that. And I know, oh my God, our time is limited, but I'm not done with this interview.
Okay. Let's hang out.
So for the folks listening in who are saying, holy shit, I got to get my finances together. I'm going to go to learnvest.com, right, and figure it out and set up some goals. But that voice in the back of your head that says, can I be this fierce? Can I actually change my own reality, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the minute that you ask yourself big questions like that, it is immediately coupled by, oh no, you cannot. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And those voices are nasty. So what did that fear look like for you, and how did you deal?
Yeah. Well, I sat with that fear I feel like for years.
Yeah.
And I think, and those voices never go away. Like I'm still like, what are we doing? Talking on a Google Hangout, thinking that people want to listen to us, and those voices still never go away. They just become a little bit quieter, and you learn how to reason with them. A quote I love, I think Elizabeth Gilbert's the one that's always talking about it, where fear's always there, and it's usually riding like shotgun with you. Yeah. And until you learn to say, like, get in the back seat, because he's not going anywhere. Like, get in the back seat. We hear you. You want to know, are we there yet? And all these things. But, like, get in the back seat, put on your seatbelt, come along for the ride. But you're not riding shotgun with me. You're not going to control me.
Right.
So I love that mentality. But, yeah, when I first started blogging, I was like, who the heck do I think I am? Saw all of these websites that looked gorgeous. I think for all of us millennials, we think if you have an awesome website, you therefore have an awesome banging business
plan, right?
And and like you can have an awesome website and no business. And what I've learned from my show is you can have no website and you can have an awesome business,
right?
It's uncovering those things. I think those realities and those truths, which is what you do here in this show, and also what I do in mine. Once you become clear about what the realities are, you learn to be a little bit less hard on yourself. So learning for me to deal with my fear, for a long time I tried doing it on my own, like just blogging on my own, putting it out there, seeing does anybody like it, and not really talking to people. Once I started having the conversations with other bloggers, with other business owners about what do they face on a day-to-day basis? What are the challenges? What were those first few years like? I pretty quickly learned like everyone goes through it.
Right.
And that was the reason I wanted to start the Big Leap Show. It's just to show like all these cool people went through the exact same fears, went through the exact same challenges. And so it's totally fine. It's totally normal, because so often we start and we do these things that are so important to us. Nobody's listening. There's no one listening except for our mom in the beginning. And And we kind of feel like, well, how are we ever going to make it to what they have?
Right.
And so it's learning to be then patient with yourself in your journey, practice a lot of self-love, and surround yourself with people who can be real about it. Not people that say overnight, you can make this thing a success.
Right.
Because if they're making it overnight a success, it's probably not going to be a long-term success. It's a quick, rich scream. And for the people that have been in it, like Emily, I've had so much respect for you for so long because you've been building Bossed Up for years and like changing so many lives through it. Like, you know, it's learning that you went through those same fears that makes it then easier for me.
Love it. I love it. I feel inspired. I feel like there's a lot of mutual inspiration going back and forth here. And I hope that the ladies listening in feel the same way because I think what we're both doing and something that everyone who's interested in entrepreneurship or interested in being a valuable employee or a mix of the both is focusing on actually providing real value to the people we serve, whether it's your boss, whether it's your team, whether it's your board, or whether it's your company, right, and your clients. But actually making other people's lives a little easier, a little better, a little more delightful, a little more beautiful, whatever it might be. I think that focus is, you know, is a slow and steady process, but is a pretty awesome way to focus your energy and manage your own expectations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think he's cueing us that it's time to wrap it up.
I was going to say as one quick last note too, you know, one thing that really stunted me for so long was comparing myself to others. Totally. And I think, you know, so many of us compare ourselves, like I was mentioning, you know, the looking up to other people. But, you know, in the beginning, I would say I was looking for resources too. My dog, he's like, come on, girls, wrap it up. But, you know, Bossed Up was one of those ones I really respected. There were so many websites I respected. I thought I could never, ever do that. But it's only when I shifted. And now I see you more as a friend, not as a, we're not competitors. We're just trying to help as many people as we can.
Exactly.
That's when it shifts. When you can start to align yourself with people with a similar mindset to say, let's go into this together rather than feeling like you need to compare yourself. That's when magic starts to happen.
Right. And there are ways to pretend to do that. And then there are like radical ways to actually do that.
Yeah.
And the more people I work with, you know, at Bossed Up, we've got guest trainers who come to every boot camp. We got people on Career Crush all the time. We co-host every power hour we do. The more times that I actually very, very much so like am collaborative, people are like, wow, this is such a millennial company. It's like, this is how shit gets done in our new world. And it makes me actually really optimistic about the future. Like we have big problems to solve. And not just as Americans, but like as a world, right? And if this generation can actually live up to our reputation on collaboration, the patience to improve upon the status quo over the long term, I am very optimistic about the big, crazy challenges that confront us right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that everyone who's considering making a big leap in their life gets some courage in the form of this fabulous podcast that Kathlyn hosts. Head on over to thebigleapshow.com. You can search Bossed Up, I think, on your website and find an interview. Which had so much
awesome interview.
I think it was one of the first times I ever talked about the business behind Bossed Up, too. So check that out. And we'll keep in touch, Kathlyn, because I know Bossed Up's growing slowly and steadily, and
so fastly and steadily, I think.
And we're going to be coming out West Coast soon, so we're going to have to connect for realsies.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are freaking lost, get Emily's life tracker. Get the Bossed Up life tracker, because that is like chock full, in depth with like, what do you want? How can you get it? Looking for all those things that I did. It's basically a format to say, you know, search for what you want, dig into it, and go do it if you haven't already.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's our free downloadable ebook that helps you get clear on your goals. It's at bossedup.org/life tracker. Thanks so much, Kathlyn. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today.
Bye.
Bye there.